All right. Good morning. I'm here at ViVE 2026 with Dr. Alan Young.
Hello.
Hi, Alan. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, so glad for you to be here. I'm so glad to talk to you. How are you enjoying ViVE?
It's been great. This is where I call home, Los Angeles, so it's nice to welcome friends and colleagues into town to explore kind of collaboration and conversations around healthcare.
I know. And LA is beautiful. If you're lucky enough to be in LA, you're pretty lucky.
Yeah, it's cold and snowy other places I've heard, so
it's not cute. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about you and all the things that you're doing.
Yeah, so Dr. Alan Young, happy to be here. I'm actually Canadian. I'm the son of immigrants that came to Canada from Taiwan. After growing up in Vancouver, BC, I moved down here to California and LA to finish an undergrad degree at UCLA. I got attracted into the fields of science and medicine and business. Yeah. So explored courses and ended up going to medical school here at USC in LA. But at the same time, I decided to pursue a dual degree program. So I did an MD MBA program that kind of helped me equip myself for the US healthcare system, which, as you may know and the audience knows, is kind of complicated and a little bit more convoluted compared to maybe single payer systems like they have in Canada and other countries. After completing the program, I fell in love with procedural medicine and just decided to pursue a training program in orthopedic surgery. Really enjoyed scrubbing into pediatric surgeries here at CHLA. That's where I kind of got my start. During my training, I decided to work at Kaiser Permanente as a surgical urgent care physician, and then actually got the opportunity to work in consulting. During my time as a physician, I started off in the traditional role of documenting everything with pen and paper and putting them in charts. And then when I went to training, they said, we need you to help design a computer-based system to track patient records and your documents. And then I joined Kaiser Permanente, and they had this system called Epic. And I was suddenly trained in using a computer and a mouse, which was something I had never imagined 5-10 years before that, because I was used to the paper charts. And so that kind of led my career into that area of exploring how technology can really impact not just physicians, but also the way that we take care of our patients. And as we've seen, the evolution and trajectory of technology in healthcare is rapidly expanding. And I've been lucky to be at the forefront of consulting companies that are helping organizations. I also joined startups previously as a chief medical officer that were doing AI and machine learning software to really help impact patient navigation, diagnostics, predictive analytics for surgery. And so that kind of led me to where I am now. And I'm a co-founder of a company called Everyoung Group. We do consulting in healthcare as well as beauty and skincare and wellness. And then also I'm a fractional operator, general manager for a virtual care company called Vitalchat.
I love this. I have so many questions for you, but I want to focus on the startup angle, right? Because there is so much energy there. There is usually a startup that started to figure out one specific problem and make that specific problem easier or go away entirely. So what kinds of innovation from startups are you excited about?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing about startups is healthcare is hard. The industry is unforgiving and usually does not give you the time or the funding for you to really see your ideas or products come to fruition. So it's hard. But what I'm most excited about is these companies that are finding unique ways to solve problems and have baffled and frustrated both clinicians and patients and administrators for years. And some of these have to do with eliminating waste and inefficiency in the system. An example could be unnecessary documentation. Even though everything's in the computer now, everything's kind of digitized, there's still a lot of patients that are coming in and completing their intake
on paper
registration form or even on their phone. Then they show up and they ask for it again. Oh, we couldn't access your file. Or, oh, it didn't get sent from your other organization. Or, oh, we're not compatible with your EHR. So there's still a lot of inefficiency and people resort back to the way they used to do things. I think I'm excited to see how organizations and startups can solve that problem. The other is really advancing science. I think the way that technologies that are allowing knowledge to be extracted, analyzed, and supporting humans and clinicians and researchers, because there's so much data out there now because everything is captured. There's not enough time for any human to review it all. So you need support, and that's where things like artificial intelligence are coming in, where they're starting to create models, algorithms, agents to do some of the work on behalf of the human and synthesize and create insights or recommendations or findings or even suggestions on how to do things differently.
Yes.
That allows researchers, clinicians to move faster, hopefully safely within the confines of regulation, but I hope that will impact and speed up maybe things getting into the hands of patients, like cures and new surgical techniques and other things.
Oh, I love just one of the many observations, which is, and we talked a little bit about this off camera, which is the potential of software to make so much more out of an existing system. Like, you can still extend with software, even legacy things, right? To decrease the burden on people in the hospital system, patients, right? One of the things that's important to me, I'm going to go back, but like, one of the themes of this conference that I've loved is put the focus back on the patient. I think part of that angle is decreasing the workload on the providers as well. So actually the MDs sitting there feeling the pressure to document something while the patient is talking, because otherwise they're just going to head into something else and they have no time to do it. So we talked, like you and I have talked a lot about AI. There is AI. There's so much buzz around AI at this conference. Are there any other technologies that you would love to highlight as something that's exciting about this conference to you today?
Yeah, I think artificial intelligence is such a broad term. And now when we think about software, I think the areas that are most compelling to me that don't include a significant AI portion is really how we can support clinical workflows and streamline efficiencies around. And some of these will require not AI, but actually reimagining of how patients, doctors, nurses, administrators, the billing team, the intake team, how everyone interacts. I think that would be a result of looking back at why we do things the way we do now today in medicine. Realizing these were instituted or created in an era that is probably no longer as relevant based on what we can do instead. And reimagining that workflow, creating the more optimal workflow, solidifying it, and making sure that it gets adopted and all the stakeholders are aligned. That is what is exciting. That doesn't take AI. That takes people who have been in the trenches, who know the inefficiencies, have seen the struggles of patients and families and doctors, and say, no, like, we shouldn't keep doing it this way. We can't keep banging our head against the wall thinking the wall's going to break. We should go around it. We should come up with it, go over the wall, right? And so I think that's the most exciting thing. The organizations that are really identifying how to create newer processes that are relevant, that are affordable, and that are scalable. And every organization will probably start internally because, as you ask any health system executive or doctor, their situation is unique. A hospital in New York versus Texas versus California, different set of circumstances, different patient population, different payer mix, different disease prevalence. It's all different. And so a workflow in one hospital doesn't necessarily apply to every hospital.
The last question that I really want to ask you is, in your work advising startups, what trends have you seen? Is there anything that you want to highlight? Is there stuff that they're doing wrong? Is there stuff that they're doing right? Do you have any insights from there?
I think when I advise startups, both through healthcare accelerators or as a consultant, I think the one thing they're doing right is seeking clinical input early and often. And often. I know I just spoke with a well-established surgical physician who says that he only has limited hours in his day. He can't help everyone, and if he does so, there has to be some sort of compensation. And it's hard to get that level of expertise to inform a startup that doesn't have readily access to them. So I find that you need to get that input early, but you also have to get some consistent, because things evolve, things change. So if you had a session with me for 2 hours, you might learn a lot about what I think about your company, but then a month later, your company is pivoting and doing something different, or the market is changing. And you're going to be like, well, Dr. Young said this like last month. We're going to use that. That may no longer be the best advice. So companies are going to organizations and saying, hey, we need clinical input early and often. We'll make an investment in that. That shows through in the way they go to market or their product. What companies are doing poorly or what I've seen that probably doesn't work, is going to health systems who, if that's their customer, it could be a health plan, it could be a biotech, so I'm just going to use health system, and coming in and saying, hey, we're going to improve this or solve this or fix this, but there's no clear connection between what they're trying or advertising to what the system executives, leaders are aiming for.
Yes.
So there's a great panel earlier this week at ViVE where they talked about you have to get the board's KPIs, what their goals are, what those articulate clearly, and think about what are you doing that's going to lead directly to that.
Right.
And if you're not, you're unlikely to get sustainable support across the organization.
That sounds to me, because I also love startups as well, it means that as a startup, that you can't focus on the 6 days, 6 week, maybe even 6 month sales cycle. You really have to build rapport with who you're selling to. You have to really understand their problems. You have to really have done sometimes this systems architecture. How does my thing work within your environment? And how am I really providing value and really laying that case out very clearly? Do you agree or do you disagree?
I think it's definitely tricky. I think you have to have a long-term objective.
Yes.
But you have to be very diligent and have short-term, immediate focus on results.
Yes.
There was another panel where a friend was discussing how pilots sometimes are not very useful.
Interesting.
Because oftentimes a pilot will generate some measure of success, but typically in a very focused and controlled environment where you have alignment, you have support, you have inertia from a clinical champion, you get some funding.
Right.
But then you say, oh, this worked really well here. Now we're going to have to scale it. Well, that's not going to happen overnight.
No.
Do you have the same level of resources support across the enterprise? Likely not.
Yes.
And then you have to go through now all of the requirements such as for cybersecurity or regulatory compliance or clinician adoption or patient consent that you probably didn't deal with immediately during the pilot.
You might have gotten waived during a pilot because the scope is contained, the risk is contained. That is so important. Thank you so much for sharing that.
No problem.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about today?
I think, healthcare, again, is hard.
Yes.
I've been in it for, I lost count, maybe 30 plus years now. I'm still learning and trying to keep up. I think it can be also intimidating and discouraging for early entry companies to think that they're going to make a difference, but I would say to them, encourage them to keep going.
You're going to make a difference.
Harder,
yes.
Make the effort, be resilient, be flexible, be humble and inquisitive.
Yes.
Because there's so many problems in the healthcare system that we can't continue the way we are. We need some sort of, broad, collaborative solutions to fix many of the problems that we're facing.
Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Young. It was so great talking with you. Have a great ViVE.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right.